The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is Monday, March 2nd, 2020. Thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be a jam-packed show. Let's start with the obvious headline of Mayor Peter Buttigieg dropping out of the race just ahead of Super Tuesday. It's interesting because he allegedly won, or at least came in a close second, got the majority of the delegates out of Iowa, but did not get the majority vote in Iowa. And this is the fastest, I believe, anyone who won the Iowa primary dropped out of the race. And it is obviously to help the moderates consolidate around Joe Biden. Cool. I'm glad, personally, whatever percentage goes to Joe Biden is totally fine with me. I'm just glad Mayor Pete is out of the race. Right. Biden is ahead in terms of me. For me, if it's between Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden, I pick Joe Biden any given day of the week. And you know what I feel about Joe Biden. So that should tell you what I feel about Mayor Pete. It's indifferent to me whether or not the bulk of his supporters go to Joe Biden, because we understand the nature of this race. I guess I'm getting to the point a lot quicker. I wanted to give a little more context before I got straight to the point. This is an ideological divide that rests squarely on the differences of values, what we actually believe. People who use the excuse of Bernie supporters are so mean, that's just a cover for whatever else, what other reason you're trying to oppose Bernie Sanders, right? Bottom line. And the majority of the moderates, I almost call them conservatives because they are, the majority of the conservatives and moderates inside of the Democratic Party, they are terrified of actually doing something for the people. When I was in South Carolina this weekend, had a chance to spend 3 days in South Carolina, I spoke to quite a few voters in between doing the stuff that I was doing there with MSNBC. I was out and I spoke to people, and the overwhelming majority of the people that I spoke to had a visceral reaction to doing something for the people. Right? The idea that we would dare use the government. Fair warning, I'm almost in rare form right now because this infuriates me. The level of propaganda that has gone into changing and morphing the minds of Democrats to have a visceral, hate-filled reaction. No, I'm serious. The people I spoke to, when you mentioned Bernie Sanders in South Carolina, it wasn't so much a personal reaction to his character or him as a person. They seemed to be okay with him as a person. What they had a visceral reaction to was the idea that we would use the government to do something good for the people. And I'm sorry, that is the fundamental problem. That is the fundamental divide in the Democratic Party right now. Whether or not you want to even try to do something for the working people of this country, the working class, which is as diverse as America is. I guess I had this whole show planned out. I rarely plan the shows out. I just go for what I know, right? But I have the whole show planned out, and this was all going to be separate segments, but they all run together. The working class is diverse. There's a report from 2018 from the Center for American Progress. Not a fan of the Center for American Progress, but the people who actually do some reporting sometimes do really good reporting. And this report, it talked about the breakdown of the working class. And based on the numbers, the working class is almost identical to the diversity of America. We're talking about 13% of the working class is African American. 44% of the working class is women. I think it was about 16% of the working class is Hispanic. Right? So the working class is literally as diverse as America. And so when we talk about doing something for the working class, what the Democratic establishment has been furiously doing over the last 10 years or more, if not more, to identify, to designate the working class to being nothing but white people. And so therefore, if we do anything for the working class, we are inherently racist. That's propaganda spin number one from the Democratic Party. What they don't realize, or they don't care to admit, they probably know, but they don't care to admit, is the fact that they themselves have been indoctrinated. They have been indoctrinated with right-wing propaganda that has morphed their minds into thinking anyone who wants to do something for the working class is a radical, is a scary socialist, or anyone who's calling for the government to do something for the working class, we must be lazy. These were some of the sentiments that I got off the ground in South Carolina. That's why I knew. I didn't want to say it, but I knew after 2 days, Friday afternoon, Friday night, Saturday morning, after speaking to people, I knew Bernie was going to lose. Not because they dislike Bernie, because they furiously dislike the idea of helping somebody else. Democrats furiously hate. Establishment Democrats have a visceral reaction to trying to help someone else. That's why they can get behind a guy like Joe Biden who's promising that I'm not going to do a damn thing for you. That to them is the war cry. That is the battle cry. That's what they want to go into battle against the most destructive president in our history, in at least modern history. They want to go into battle against Donald Trump with the enthusiasm that is garnered by the idea of no, we can't. But they're willing to do that because it's an anathema to them. It is repugnant to them to think about doing something for the working class. And so the greatest example of the Republican propaganda, the greatest accomplishment of Republican propaganda was to turn Democrats into Republicans. That is what has happened. Democrats who believe that there's something different than Republicans, no, all you've done is turn your hatred towards somebody else. This system is built off of who you hate. Republicans just hate everybody who's not white, basically. They hate everybody who does not believe what Donald Trump tells them to believe. I ran into people like that too. It was such an experience in South Carolina that I got to write a book about it, or at least a chapter in the book that I'm working on. Like, I ran into a guy who was a multi-millionaire, furious. I mean, had everything that he needed, ever wanted, but his hatred towards everybody who did not support Donald Trump was unimaginable. And I guess hatred is the wrong word, because we had a good conversation and it was a pleasant conversation, but the rage that was underneath the surface, when you would think that he was full of rage because he was struggling. No, he was full of rage because of the idea that we would demand this government do something for the people. That infuriated him so much to the point where I had to make sure I was ready to jump. If it was going to jump off, I had to be ready. Right. I just had I kind of gauge the environment. I'm a small dude, so I always got to be ready to, in case stuff goes down, I got to be able to maneuver pretty quickly, grab something next to me because I'm a small dude. And that's how much rage came out of him every few seconds. But guess who was almost as furious as he was? This black elderly guy who was at the diner that we were in recording MSNBC. He pulled me to the side, and here I am getting ready to engage in a conversation with my African-American elder and just kind of banter back and forth. And this dude was ready to fight me because I supported Bernie Sanders. And it wasn't because of Bernie Sanders as a person. It was because he was furious that people would demand that this government do something for the people. And I am subsequently enraged that this has become the nature of the Democratic Party. You have a visceral reaction to us trying to help the working class because you have been indoctrinated and propagandized not only by the Republican Party to believe that we don't deserve anything from a government that we help generate $24 trillion worth of wealth every single year. And we don't have the right to demand that everyone be housed, everyone be fed, everyone be clothed, everyone be able to see a doctor, everyone be able to get a higher education. That is the baseline for humanity. And you get upset with us because we have the nerve to ask the government demand the government do something for us. You are as much a Republican as anyone else. You have just changed your hatred. You don't hate immigrants. You hate the working class. And you hate the idea that we would get enough feet under us, enough footing under us, enough ground under us to be able to stand and look you in the eye and say, get out of our way, because we are going to do something for the working people in this country. They're infuriated. And so now they're rallying behind a man who does not even have the mental faculties enough to stand a chance against Donald Trump. They are more willing to lose to Donald Trump than they are to get somebody in power who's actually going to challenge this status quo and change America from being servants to corporations to being servants of the people. I'm sorry. What the hell is wrong with you people? That is the divide. That is it. There's nothing else. Bernie Sanders supporters are mean. I'm sorry. Everybody is mean. Everybody is repugnant. Everybody has said something. Everybody is, I don't care. And if you really think that is a reason to not support someone, a clear divide, there's a line in the sand. You're either helping the working people or you're hurting the working people. And if you're going to use the excuse, oh, Bernie Sanders supporters are so mean, you never intended to help the people anyway. How are you any better than Republicans? Pray tell me, how are you any better than Republicans when you have the visceral reaction towards the idea of doing something for the people? You label it communist, you label it socialist, when it's nothing more than what Democrats used to be. And now you're all rallying behind this guy.
And Bernie doesn't have a very good track record of getting things done in the United States Congress, the United States Senate. And much of what he's proposing is very, very much pie in the sky. He's talking about spending $60 trillion and not raising taxes on the middle class and being able to get it done quickly and so on. I've laid out clearly how we can get a health care plan covering everybody and have a Medicare option for those who want it, and we can get it done quickly. I've laid out a game plan as to how we can get things done. And so I think it's about who can not only win, bring along a Senate and keep a House, the House of Representatives, but who can then get something done.
Can anybody tell me what this guy actually stands for? Get things done? He said get things done like 20 times. I cut it out in between. But what are the things that he wants to get done? So far, the only thing that he has been the most bold about saying is the fact that he wants to work with Republicans, that working across the aisles to get things back to some normalcy, to work with the people who have clearly demonstrated that they are willing to die before they do anything with the Democrats. Joe Biden thinks he's the person that can triangulate. So what is he going to give up? What is he willing to give up just in the name of bipartisanship? What is he going to have to give up in order to work with unreasonable people? Get things done. The things that you get done have been devastating to America. Your track record of things that you got done included the 94 crime bill, included an attempt on Medicare, Social Security. So I'm actually terrified of the idea of him getting something done with Republicans because he's going to capitulate to Republicans. And it's not only that, it's also that I don't think he's got the wherewithal to actually go up against Trump. Listen in.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. Thanks for your time. Please come back in less than 13 years, sir.
All right, Chuck. Thank you very much.
All right. It's Chris, but anyway.
Chris. I just did Chris. No, I just did Chuck. I tell you what, man, these are back to back. Anyway.
No, it's
I don't
okay.
know how you do it early in the morning, too.
Safe travels on the campaign trail. Thank you, sir.
Biden does not have the wherewithal. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It is irresponsible. It is grossly irresponsible to put this man up against Donald Trump. It is, because you are guaranteeing that Donald Trump is going to win. And I think, to be quite honest, I think anyone who's underestimating the fight against Donald Trump, Sanders supporters or anybody, I think the fight of our generation is to actually beat Donald Trump because his base is so motivated. They are motivated by their hatred. They're motivated by their bigotry. They're motivated by the propaganda that has made them deluded in terms of what they believe. But they are all in. And you want to run some. If Bernie Sanders gets the nomination, it is not a guarantee that we're going to win. And that's with having an entire movement. I mean, people who traveled from all across the country. Shout out to Ashley Stevens and the entire crew over there that were in South Carolina, but traveled across the country to knock on doors for Bernie Sanders. And you mean to tell me you actually think that Joe Biden, who has the inspiration level of a sloth, is going to generate a movement sufficient to take on MAGA and Donald Trump, you are so irresponsible and deluded. It is not laughable. It is actually sad. And to think that what's driving your support of your own destruction is your hatred towards the idea of doing something for the working families of this country, because you're not going to, literally, when you cut to it, you can cut through all the BS. They can say whatever they want to say. Their opposition to Bernie Sanders is the idea that we are going to do something for the working families because they have been indoctrinated to believe that that's socialism. But when we give trillions of dollars to banks, that's capitalism. And they're capitalists. They're good capitalists. Elizabeth Warren's, I'm a capitalist. Nancy Pelosi, I'm a capitalist. Congratulations. Your definition of capitalism has left the working families of this country completely devastated. So that's the divide. It has nothing to do with age. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with anything other than ideology. If you want to know who's supporting whom, then ask them what they believe with regard to the government's responsibility to the people, because the people have given the government consent to govern, but we also have become the engine of its prosperity. Corporations, what do you owe us? We are the engines of your prosperity. God doggone this music. All right, let's move on.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Here we go. Very special thank you to every single patrons, not just our new patrons, but this is the top of the month. Thank you for being a patron and supporting this show. Welcome aboard to X Zamillo. Welcome aboard to Edmund Gray, David Albert, Laura, Vivek. Very special welcome to James Christensen, Savion, Joe Heitkamp, Palsy Odom. Palsy O, thank you for becoming a patron. David Sabin, Jedediah Paulette, Frederick Lakes Jr., Lane, Lizbeth Raphael, thank you for becoming a patron. Joseph Tatino, thank you for becoming a patron. Iona Mars, Mike Johnson, Kwame Thomas, Ted Ganung, Meet Old Greg's Wee Party. Old Greg's Wee Party. Welcome aboard. Thank you for becoming a patron. Anika Saunders. Thank you for becoming a patron. Lee Levin, Diane Walsh, Cyrus Kashani, David Walensky, Dan Renegade, Pamela Young, Robin Avery, Damn. Thank you for becoming a patron, Damn. Mark Garcia, Tara Lee, Shalene Tidal, Sev Black, Paul Libau, Nick, Wayne May. Thank you all so much for becoming patrons. You too can join this prestigious and prodigious family of patrons by going to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and joining our family. You get twice the content without any of the ads like you're going to hear now.
Continue to say, down with the billionaires. We can't stand the rich. A lot of people want to be rich. So is it the right message that the Democrats are going with?
It's so effing wrong.
Whoa.
I've talked to Schumer. I've talked to Wyden. I've talked to Pelosi.
And said what?
And I said, if you use the term billion again, I'm done.
Why?
Because it's aspirational. I didn't start with anything. Just penalize everyone that's done well. We all want to do well. And we should be the party of doing well. We should be a party of business and leadership. And it is very, very disturbing when I hear the millionaire or billionaire word. And I've told them to stop it, knock it off. Because everyone wants to do really well. And this is the world of aspirations.
Then are you worried that the Democratic Party is going too far to the left?
So much so, it drives me nuts. So much so, it would make me quit the party. And I've made it very clear, I'll cut your money off.
Okay.
And others will do the same.
Then cut it off. Cut it off then. That is the voice of Stephen Klubeck. Very special thank you to everyone who helped me find that clip. Particularly, I want to thank our honorary associate producer today, which is Giori Mayer. Thank you for finding that clip. I wanted to find that clip because this is the spirit of the Democratic Party. This is who controls the Democratic Party. That mindset, that thinking, that inclination, that the ruling elite, the billionaires. Listen, We are literally in a class warfare of our lives. And they are more willing, the Democratic Party, the party that carries a label of being the party for the working people, they are now willing and in a position to push this entire party completely outside of the realm of helping the working people. Why do you think half of the people in this country don't vote? Can we cut to the chase? People don't believe that voting matters because they believe that no matter who they vote for, it's going to end up doing nothing for them and helping nothing but the rich. And please tell me how they're wrong. Please tell me how they are wrong about this. If our choice is between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, how are things going to change for working families? Joe Biden is a good man. Maybe. Okay, so what? Donald Trump is evil. Yeah, okay, fine. How is it going to materially change the condition for working families when the Democratic Party has shown that they are in an all-out push to make sure that we don't even get Elizabeth Warren? Hey, Elizabeth Warren supporters, I have not said a negative thing about her on this show, relatively speaking, right? I give criticisms for everybody. So, nobody's above criticism, but I think I've been pretty measured and really good to Elizabeth Warren. Mainly because a lot of my friends support her and I'm just trying to give them the space to do their thing and that's their prerogative. But the reason I bring Elizabeth Warren up is because I need you to understand that the Democratic Party is so far gone that they reject Elizabeth Warren, who clearly, if you really want to stop Bernie Sanders, then you would have picked Elizabeth Warren. The establishment should have picked Elizabeth Warren, but Elizabeth Warren is too much for them. Now, I got some issues with Warren. I'm going to talk about Warren. I'll probably wait till the Patrons episode because she's positioning herself right now to block Bernie. And what kind of twisted relationship is that when you're going to do the bidding of the establishment and help them stop Bernie when the establishment is doing everything it can to stop you, Liz? The establishment is clearly doing everything to stop you because you're not centrist enough. The fact that you want to tax billionaires is a non-starter for this Democratic establishment. I bring that up in terms of Elizabeth Warren because as it is time for her to go ahead and get the hell out of this race. Love you, Liz. I've been a fan of yours for years. You've disappointed me at times, but even my disappointment hasn't stopped me from liking Elizabeth Warren. But it's time for you to go. And the reason I'm saying it's time for you to go is because the establishment has rejected you without question. And now they're using you and your supporters to stop Bernie. So and I guess the thing to me, do whatever you want to do. Obviously, she's going to do what she wants to do and we can't stop her. That's her prerogative. Fine. But why would you do the bidding of an establishment that is so far gone that they reject you when you were their best chance of actually beating Bernie Sanders and stopping Donald Trump? The person the establishment could have picked to do that would have been Elizabeth Warren. But what did the establishment say to Elizabeth Warren? They said, get the hell out of here. You want to tax our billionaires? You've got to go too. The fundamental divide is not about race. I don't care what it is no longer Black History Month, ladies and gentlemen. I am getting ready to talk about these black bourgeoisie Negroes. In the next segment, we're going to have a conversation about the wealth divide in the black community and how there's the stratification of elites in the black community. And they are rallying behind Joe Biden because they reject the idea, just like Republicans, that the government should be used for the general welfare. They got theirs and they think you're lazy. Okay, that's another segment. I'm going to save it. Back to Elizabeth Warren, actually back to the Democratic establishment who has made it clear. The Democratic establishment has made it clear that they are here to serve corporate power. And I don't care how you want to admit, you cannot show me the evidence of anything otherwise. Their last 40-year track record has been one of capitulation and servitude to the corporate America. And this is why Bernie said this.
You've also called yourself an existential threat to the Democratic establishment. I guess that includes House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrats in the House and the Senate. Don't you need their support to win in November? One of the big pitches that Vice President Biden was just making is that he can help make sure the Democrats hold on to the House, take back the Senate, and that you're going to be a burden for House Democrats and Democratic Senate candidates come November.
That's absolutely untrue. the corporate wing of the Democratic Party, a group called Third Way, attacked me, and they said I'm an existential threat to the Democratic Party. And what I said is, I'm an existential threat to the corporate wing of the Democratic Party. For too long, the Democratic Party and leaders have been going to rich people's homes, raising money, and they've ignored the working class and the middle class and low-income people in this country. That has got to change. We got to open the doors of the Democratic Party to millions and millions of people who are trying to get by on $12, $13 an hour, who can't afford health care, can't afford child care, who can't afford to send their kids to college. Those are the people we have to start paying attention to.
Okay. That's why there is a clear line in the sand. I'm going to say that at least 20 more times in this episode. If you're tired of me saying it, then now's the time for you to go ahead and click off the podcast, because there is a line in the sand. You either want to help working people in this country or you don't. And the reason I can make that delineation so clear is because of South Carolina. My time that I spent in South Carolina, I saw a visceral reaction to the idea that the government should help the working people who make this government function. We are literally the people upon which the wealth, or through which the wealth of every billionaire is generated, through our labor, through our consumption, through our data. Our information is monetized. Everything about us, our debt. It wasn't enough for them to take all of our money. Now they're making money off of our debt, right? They've monetized every aspect of our lives. And then they call us lazy because we say enough is enough. It's time for us to have a baseline standard of living that goes beyond subsistence. Like, is it too much to ask? And see, here's the thing. It is. They are clearly telling us that it is too much to ask for us to be able to have a government that provides a baseline standard of living for the people who provide for the government. That is not too much to ask. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's travel to Selma, Alabama. Yesterday, parishioners at a church stood up and turned their backs to Mayor Bloomberg as he spoke in an event commemorating Bloody Sunday. At that event was any number of presidential candidates. Bernie Sanders did not show up. And as you know, I don't play around on this show. Everybody gets criticism. Bernie Sanders should have had his butt there. I don't care what rally he had to attend. They could have scheduled the rally 3 hours later so that he could fly just about anywhere in this country. Okay. This is how Bernie stayed messing up. Now, I said it. We're moving on. Bloomberg showed up, and there were people in the audience who had enough integrity to stand up and turn their backs to Bloomberg because they had to protest. Like, this is the thing that I admire about them. It's because if you can't do anything else, you could just let it be known that you do not approve of what is being said or by whom it's being said. But instead, you still had all the other presidential candidates who, I guess, their thing isn't going to be to protest. That's not their position. That's not their job to protest. But then there you also have Stacey Abrams. I'll get to Stacey Abrams in a minute because if I'm going to criticize Bernie Sanders, you sure. I mean, I'm not going to. Nobody is above critique. I criticize myself on my show. But then there was also Reverend Al Sharpton. I didn't see that till later. Reverend Al Sharpton was there. And here's the only thing I can consider with Al Sharpton that's a little different than everyone else that I have a problem with. Al Sharpton, in terms of being a media personality, being a person in media, he's a person who needs to be sitting there and asking questions of Michael Bloomberg, asking the pressing questions. He's not. And this is why I have a problem. Reverend Sharpton, call it a spade a spade. You were sitting in that seat. My best guess is that you're sitting in that seat in your capacity as a leader of the National Action Network. Now, as a leader of the National Action Network, you should not be on stage with a person who, from New York, you're in New York, has thrown your people up against the walls. I am not playing about Mayor Bloomberg. Anybody who directly endorses him, anyone who is complicit through their silence, we have to oppose you. We have to oppose you. No questions asked, which brings me back to Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams was caught in a picture sitting right next to, as he was speaking, Mayor Bloomberg was speaking. Stacey Abrams was just to his left. And yeah, I called it out on Twitter, and everybody's like, well, no, not everybody. Most everybody was like, dang, Stacey, why? And then other people were like, well, Ben, she didn't pick the seating, or she didn't do whatever. She was there being honored. What was she supposed to do? Look at what the people did. Look at what the people in the audience did. Listen, if you're in this fight for the right reason, you do not give a person like Mayor Bloomberg any cover. He is the enemy of progress. He is the enemy of black and brown people, particularly in New York. What do you think he's going to do when he becomes president? He's the enemy of people who are fighting for working families, people who are fighting against income inequality. There's no way that you can, in good faith and good conscience, stand there or sit there just to listen to this man. I don't care who you are. I am the biggest fan of Kirk Franklin. When I tell you musically, like I would drop everything that I'm doing and go on tour with Kirk Franklin just to carry the cables. I'm a fanboy of Kirk Franklin, but let Kirk Franklin do something to support Mayor Bloomberg. We have to draw the line somewhere. And so for anyone who is directly endorsing him or indirectly giving him cover, we've got a problem with you, because you are giving cover to a person who is an authoritarian, Republican, racist oligarch who is trying to buy the Democratic Party. How can you not see that?
Bernie, for me though, guess we can say, I'm a Bernie bro. They hate that stereotype.
How do you feel about the stereotype? Because the people from communities of color support Bernie far more than white people.
It is so frustrating. The reason why it's frustrating is because it's like they always say, listen to black women. That's what we hear. Listen to black women. Listen to black women. Make sure what they say, what they feel, what they want. And then it's like, well, don't listen to those black women. Like, listen to the ones we want y'all to listen to, not the ones that's actually got to go work, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning for a 4 a.m. job. Like, not those black women, not the ones who want health care. Listen to the ones that's going to tell you that.
The name of that individual was Just Asia, and that is a clip from paydayreport.com. And it was posted by Mike Elk. Be sure to check them out. He has a whole string of videos from Just Asia as she makes the case that we've been trying to make for a long time here. The working class is diverse. The working class is full of black people. The working class is full of black women. Ryan Adams, thank you for becoming a patron. I'm sorry, it just dropped in my email box just now, so I had to give you a shout out. Thank you for becoming a patron. I actually want us to take some time to really think about this, because it is critical that we change the narrative of the debate that's thrown, not the debate because it's disingenuous, the disingenuous argument that's thrown to us, that's thrown at us, that we are supposed to look at the working class as a racially homogenous and gender homogenous group of white men. When we say working class, we literally mean the most diverse group of any subset in this country. Here's evidence. I mentioned the Center for American Progress numbers that they put out in 2018 about the working class. You could check their website to get this data yourself. The U.S. population, the working class, the breakdown of the working class in terms of women. And actually, I said it wrong earlier. The average. Oh, no, I didn't. I had it right. So the average of women's 45% of the working class are women, as compared to 50% of women in the United States population. Slightly more men, right? But 44% is a huge number. There's a lot of women in the working class. 44% is a huge percentage. There's a lot of women in the working class. Let me say it correctly. All right. The next category in terms of working class, 66% of the working class is white as compared to 12.59% of the working class being black. Do you want to know how many the U.S. population? What is the percentage of black people in America? 12.6%. So it is literally the percent. There is a representation. The representation of blackness in the working class matches blackness in America. For Hispanics, it's a little less. 13.87% of Hispanics are in the working class. I mean, if we look at the total breakdown of the demographics of the working class, you're going to see that it is almost identical to the demographics of this country. In other words, economic struggle does not discriminate at all whatsoever. Like Just Asia said in the clip, those black women who wake up. Okay, all right, here we go. The bulk of this is going to go into the Patrons episode because we're running out of time. I'm already over time. I'm just trying to give you as much as I can in this public segment. But there is a class dynamic in the black community that we rarely talk about because we try our best to have solidarity across classes in the black community. But we got to call it out at this point, because the people who are most fiercely against Bernie Sanders from the black community, they are the ones who are well-to-do, and they have nothing that they need from the government because they're getting everything that they need. See, and this is why I really do push back against this narrative that some Bernie Sanders supporters and others like to use. I mean, and don't get me wrong. No. Hang on. Let's be clear. White people, when black folks vote a way that you don't like, it doesn't matter who you support. Bernie Sanders supporters, Elizabeth Warren supporters, Hillary Clinton supporters. We have always seen white people pivot to this argument that black voters are low information. This is not something that's unique to Bernie Sanders supporters, but I expect better out of people who I'm in league with. Get your stuff together. This is not the Patrons episode yet, so I keep it clean. Get your stuff together and mature your argument a little bit. Mature your argument. You know, black voters are low information. No, you're low information because you have not matured your argument. Here is the proper argument. That there is a class dynamic in the black community, and black wealthy people are black people with pensions and 401ks and retirements, and they got money in the bank that they're good. They have land, they have property. They've got the American dream. They believe that they're voting in their best interest, and they probably are when they go to vote for Joe Biden. What I'm trying to let you, everyone knows that there are black people who are doing well, right? There are black people who are voting for their economic interests when they support the establishment because some of their economic interest is tied to the establishment. Up your arguments, folks, to stop with the racially tinged, lazy analysis that says black folks are low information voters because they're not supporting your candidate, which is not germane only to, it's not a problem that we see only with Bernie Sanders supporters. I've seen that argument since at least 2008 with Hillary Clinton supporters. Talking about us supporting Barack Obama only because he's black, right? But the deal is that everyone's skin to us ain't kin to us. We have more in league. We have more in league with people, with working class people across this country than we do with wealthy black people. We do. We simply do, because as Just Asia was explaining in that clip I played at the top of this segment, there are people, black women. Trust black women, right? Black women who get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be at work at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they work all day, and they work for something just around the minimum wage. If they're lucky, they're getting $11 an hour. And why would those people get up to come and support anyone who's not trying to change their material condition? That's the question. All right, I'm going to go into this in a lot more detail in the Patrons episode that's coming up after this music. Patrons, you hang on 15 more seconds and we'll go continue the show. Everyone else, if you want twice the content with none of the ads, go to patreon.com/the BPD show and join our prestigious and our prodigious patron family. If not, I will see you tomorrow. Take care, everyone.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com Facebook.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.